Mile a minute is an invasive barbed vine that smothers other herbaceous plants, shrubs, and trees by forming dense mats over them, consequently reducing photosynthetic capability and debilitating new growth. Native to India and Eastern Asia, it was accidentally introduced via contaminated holly seed in York County, Pennsylvania in 1930. Mile a minute growth is extremely vigorous, capable of growing at an astounding 6 inches per day. In this video, we develop a plan at assisting Pennsylvania and New York state parks in management strategies by exploring several established IPM tactics currently being used for controlling the increasingly problematic vine.
Mile a minute was introduced, we think, in Pennsylvania in 1937. So if I look at how old I am, when I was introduced to it as this is a problem, it would have been the mid-'80s. So at that point, it's been here almost 50 years, and now it's been another 30. In the mid-'80s, it was like, this is a big deal, even to the point of we should be thinking about, well, you had some people saying we should be eradicating this, but I think it didn't take much of a survey effort to say, well, no, we're clearly not going to do that. We're clearly in containment mode. Well, that kind of gets back to, and like for instance, right now we're focusing on reforestation because the rationale is we can release a generation of trees in 3 to 4 seasons, which, if you're kind of looking at an effort over time curve, I feel like it's reasonable for a given location to feel like, all right, we're going to do control work for 3 or 4 seasons, but then it really needs to lapse into a maintenance level of effort or it's not viable from a resource point of view. So with reforestation, the trees gain enough height that they're going to get past the mile a minute and they'll start producing enough shade to reduce it.
We talked to many stakeholders involved in Pennsylvania state parks about their IPM tactics for managing mile a minute, including Donald Egan, the Forest Health Manager in the DCNR, Nicholas Myers, a Field Operations Foreman at Land Studies, Inc., and Mary Walsh, an aquatic ecologist and administrator of Pennsylvania IMAP invasives. We found that the main categories of IPM tactics being administered were mechanical, chemical, biological, and cultural tactics. The main mechanical tactics used are hand-pulling mile a minute, since it has shallow roots, removing seed heads to help decrease the seed bank, and carrying out time mowing. Herbicides such as Roundup, Accord, and Garlon 4 are used as chemical IPM tactics for mile a minute control, but may not be as effective if the vines are tall and you cannot reach all of the leaves with the herbicide. Weevils have also been released since 2011 in a few states in the Northeast, including Pennsylvania, as biological control agents that are specific to mile a minute. Many cultural tactics were mentioned as well, including training park officials to recognize mile a minute, recording instances of mile a minute in georeferenced apps such as IMAP invasives or EDMAPs, surveying land with drones, and avoiding creating disturbances that provide mile a minute with sunlight and ideal environments in which they can spread.
There are several laws and regulations that govern IPM tactics in state parks. Removal of exotic species. Exotic species will be managed if control is pertinent and feasible, and the species is damaging to the park or poses a threat to public health. Pests. Pests may be managed in order to conserve certain species, preserve, maintain, or restore historical sites, prevent pest outbreaks in unprotected areas, manage human health hazards, and other human safety issues. Pesticide use. Pesticides are only used if a designated IPM specialist deems it necessary and other options are not available.
After talking to stakeholders involved in New York state parks, including E.L. West, a park ecologist at Bethpage State Park, Annie McIntyre, the Regional Environmental Manager for the Long Island region of New York State Parks, Alyssa Coleman, who works with the New York-New Jersey Trail Conference and the Lower Hudson Valley Prism, it was apparent that most of the IPM tactics used in Pennsylvania are the same ones used in New York. One way New York and Pennsylvania are different is that New York hires small groups of people with invasive species knowledge to travel to the different state parks for mechanical removal of invasives and surveillance of others. From May until November of 2015, I worked on one of the invasive species strike teams under the direction of Robert O'Brien, the Invasive Species Control Field Director at Minnewaska State Park Preserve.
The best IPM strategies are prevention instead of reaction. This usually includes cultural IPM practices. With that said, eradicating mile minute is nearly impossible. Therefore, containing its spread is the best course of action. An IPM tactic which involves containment is planting trees in disturbed areas where mile minute is prominent. Planting trees in these areas will produce shade, which will reduce the amount of sunlight mile minute has access to, and therefore reduce its growth. While implementing this tactic, important considerations would be what types of tree to use depending on specific environmental conditions, including how it will affect other aspects of the ecosystem, how economically viable it is depending on the resources of the agency, and whether or not it would be well received by the public.